Brought back some the adjusted language in reference to the 3 nights, just so we can put eyes on that and the information that was above it, where we had landed on it, because we've gone back and forth a little bit on the after school meetings. First we were going to eliminate naming them, then we were going to and just call them parent meetings, and we went back to the things from the couple, and that's kind of where we landed. So we got to look at that. And other than that, went back and ran some numbers as far as the 3 options we've gone compensation-wise, and pulled those back into 2 options, including COLA on both of them. So, I mean, that way it hits everybody. And also, there's no real implication on removing the cap this year. It'll be the following year once that amount becomes reoccurring for future budgets. So we took the cap off the 25 plus people on the schedule. So I ran kind of some preliminary numbers on those 2 things. You got 2 options, one with lift or one without. Kind of need some, in order to drill down and get more specific, need some direction on lift. But whenever we get, I'm going to hear what you guys' thoughts are and where you want to start today. We can just look at this little bit of language and then we can decide. I know you guys probably have some other ideas and things.
But we went through and then just we figure we've got a few things that we can tie up some loose ends. So.
Okay, right. And I know you had the language on the minutes, or you were going to work on the language. Catherine's going to work on the language on the minutes. I went on vacation for a little while too, but I didn't know if you guys have brought any of that back. If we can look at those. If you don't, that's kind of, those are some of the things that are holding up some of the waivers that are hanging out there. We've got both teachers and principals alike getting a little squirrely because they're wanting to know. So if and you and I can look, and if the waivers are close to where it's moving towards in language, we can get those down and then pull them back out once the contract's ratified.
Yeah. And usually the problem with the waivers I've found is twofold. One is the way that it's voted on by the staff. My favorite is when they call people in and say, sign saying you agree with this.
I don't like that one.
I don't like that one. The other problem typically is that for a core teacher, the waiver is great. But for the specials teachers, it's not so good. Because they're taking over Wednesdays or whatever day that wonderful Wednesday is, but they never get time of their own. So they never get their planning or their extended planning like the other teachers do. So that tends to be the other issue that I typically see.
And I think that was the key, when that was one of the points that was coming out there on the language we were going to work on, or that Kathy was looking at, that basically distinguished that those people were included
exactly
in the Wacky Wednesday style plans or whatever. And then, but some of the ways we've got hanging out there are things like where teachers traditionally have worked an extra period in lieu of, or paid for an extra period and things like that. Which
I haven't seen any of those.
Which shows that and time in that. So we'll talk about those later.
Okay.
But
so Dorinda, with the elementary Wacky Wednesday, have you seen anything that skews out of the ordinary?
And normally, enrichment is included. The ones I've seen, enrichment is included so that they have an additional training as well. So it rotates in K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 specials, and then it starts over. us get paid back for our day.
And probably more where Atlanta was at high school level where I think the enrichment remediation days was anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks where some of those special folks are likely classes want to make sure they're accounted for and
Okay.
take care of business. So if you guys want to look at this kind of a summary of what I felt like we talked about last time with the 3 evening events.
Okay, I've got a question, then might want to do a caucus briefly. I noticed it says concerning emergency situations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we do know that when teachers were being asked to do additional classes during their plan period, it was always an emergency, because we allowed that to be in there for emergency situations, but every situation became an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
How can we make sure that this doesn't end up that way as well?
Well, this is kind of different in that, I mean, nobody's going to pull their faculty, I don't think, just in calling us saying a meeting with the faculty. To me, that's the entire group. Now, in the other section, we still have the language built in to where if there's an emergency situations, you only have so many. But as far as subbing and planning time, we build in that language in a different section to safeguard that. Thinking that as soon as it hit folks in their pocket and they see value and make sure they don't abuse that. And definitely, we had a lot of discussion on this, making sure that people are supposed to be covered against these students, found less emergencies.
Okay, if I can do a brief caucus.
Can I ask, I thought that we eliminated weekend activities.
Oh, it says weekend? Oh.
There was,
No, I thought we said it was okay as long as they were able.
And they gave the time.
But we had a time limit.
Because I specifically remember
Thank you.
wondering what,
There was a lot of conversation about time.
yes, what Mr. Bordenkircher was going to do.
it landed on a valid point that it was safe for both sides to keep it internet. It's going to take 2 minutes when you think about where that was at. There was a lot of conversation about it.
Weekends at a time or so.
I think that right there is part of the reason why it did go away. What's written up there about the Saturday graduation.
Because I said something about that one.
But I know there was a brisk debate about that, I remember that. I just can't remember why I was there.
And it says release time up there too, so it's like a minute for minute. For this kind of thing, I think is what we ended up discussing and landing on.
Okay. I'm doing it, go ahead and do a caucus. Thank you very much.
Are y'all gonna go?
You kicking us out or do you want to kick
We're
us?
smaller usually.
Go ahead.
We're larger today.
You just want the comfortable chair.
Are we larger today?
We're larger.
If we're larger today, then that's fine. I don't know.
So, who's going where?
Yeah.
Who's going where?
It'll be easier for us. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, see you.
I get Yeah.
Kids don't forget that stuff.
That's my husband.
He had it right before school let out. I was doing engaged in the yard kind of thing. He had an accident and he broke his thumb and tons of road rash. But when they re-examined him, he has degenerative disc disease. And so he has 3 fused discs up on top and he's had back surgery on the bottom as well. So it's only like 6 inches. But 2 of the other discs are bulging now.
In pain.
So he's just, and my daughter just had her wisdom teeth, all 4 of them taken out on Friday. So I have my nursing degree ready.
You know,
I tell you, we were ready to go back to work. We were laughing last night because my husband and I were on our bikes and we went to look at the house with my son and his wife. And we pull up on our Harley and my son kind of said, "Where's your helmet?" I'm like,
No, it takes a little bit, but he was only 3 blocks away from work. I was supposed to have
You
it.
not come down for a student with TBI?
"What?"
Where is your helmet?
I'm gonna let you get on tour, so I'm gonna go on tour too.
You traumatic brain injury, you do not want to deal with that.
Next shot when you get on a motorcycle, that's what it is.
It won't sound pretty at a nursing home.
Go out and swing set, you did the
I
same
have
thing.
a friend who's a drummer for Rare Earth who ran his motorcycle head on into a telephone pole and major TBI.
Okay.
We'll send you more articles.
That's right.
They have some good ones now, believe it or not, that have really, they're expensive, but they have really good ventilation.
Yeah, they do.
So.
That's okay. My husband wants a new boat. I said, fine, sell your bike, put it towards the boat.
Okay, are we back yet?
We are back. We're ready.
Okay, this sounds really good with, you know me, I can't leave it alone. One word added. In the first section where it says determined by the principal, we want to basically ask it to be mutually agreed by the teacher and the principal. So they're both coming to an agreement.
All right.
Midway down, basically.
Release time may be scheduled at an alternate time subject to principal approval. That one?
Actually, the sentence before that. The exact date to be determined by the principal. Then it says release time may be scheduled. But we want it to be mutually agreed by the teacher and principal. So,
So you wanted to say, work 5, where it says 5 work days of the meeting.
right,
The exact date to be mutually agreed upon by teacher / principal.
I mean, that gets into, we're talking about, that gets into a variety of meetings. All of a sudden I can't really agree with that because we got parent and guardian meetings and IEP meetings, and then faculty is a large group. How are we going to get mutual agreement on times with that on a regular basis?
This is
Within the 5 days, because it says within 5 days. I
In
think
5
that
days,
really
you got to
limits it.
let them do something.
Yeah, so it has to be within the first.
This is making up for release time. This isn't the time of the meeting.
This isn't the time of the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
The
the
release
time.
This is
Can
a
I take
release
this on
time.
Friday? Yeah, you can take it on
Oh,
Friday.
okay.
In other words, the principal, right now,
Alright.
the way this is stating, that means the principal can say, okay, well, you have to take this on Monday. Well,
But I
if
had
that
a dentist
teacher-
once on Tuesday.
I got you, I got you.
See what I'm saying? I mean,
Okay,
if
I was
they're-
reading the wrong line. I see. what
That's
you're saying.
okay. You've been on vacation.
the way we're reading it, in other words, it's like that release time is going to be set by a principal versus kind of like mutually agreed.
I mean, that probably happens anyway.
It does.
Yeah.
That's what I don't say,
Right.
but we I recommend that if we got other things going.
I just don't know if it makes it harder to do within the 5
Right.
days. I think if we're gonna mutually agree upon it, it may be that I can't do that day because you this, but you can't do this day because of that. So I would say if we're gonna make that change, we would need to take the within 5 days out.
But it also says release time may be scheduled at an alternate time, so that does give you some leeway within the 5 days.
Right.
So it's
That-
already
And
there.
because of that second sentence
Yeah.
there too, I think that's conflicting with the 5-day thing, don't you think? The fact that it says release time may be scheduled at an alternate time subject to principal approval, why say the 5 days? Because if there's a way out of the 5 days, why even have the 5 days there?
I mean, the 5-day thing's always seemed,
It's always been there.
it's always, yeah, I guess it's probably so you don't log up a whole bunch of stuff that has to be tracked and,
Yeah.
and just, I mean, I know it's tracked regardless, but, I mean, that could get a little bit tedious. What do you got, principals, what are your thoughts?
What if somebody doesn't mutually agree? Because my thing is, say I have graduation, so the next time I tell them, I say, okay, guys, Tuesday, everybody's off. Then somebody wants to come back, well, I can't do it then. Well, what are you doing besides coming to see me at school? But it happens.
But this isn't about graduation, that's the next paragraph, this is
No.
about after-school meetings.
I understand, I was just using that as an example of a time off.
Well, within the 5 days is probably going to have to be only
Yeah.
a Wednesday, because unfortunately, there is no other days.
That's what we.
Well, if the one Wednesday doesn't work for that teacher for whatever reason, then, okay, well,
What about
Then
next
you're-
Wednesday?
you know, then you're going to a following Wednesday or a following Wednesday or something because
Well,
of
but
whatever, but.
This meeting may only extend 10 minutes beyond the regular workday, so we can say Friday, Friday, you can go ahead and go when the kids start. It may only be a very small amount. I'm fine with that.
Well, could you just say preferably for the first part on the 5-day, and then just leave, do like, but time might be scheduled at an alternative time to principal approval?
I think we're confusing the first two paragraphs. The first paragraph
Yes.
is just about 30-minute teacher meetings, and it's just about teachers being released at student dismissal time. It's not
Right.
any additional time. It could happen on any day, it doesn't have to be a Wednesday. It just means that at 2:20, you get to be with your students.
Am I thinking that it kind of benefits both? Is the mutual agreements there?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, 'cause then,
If it can't get in the 5 days, then we both agree that
yeah.
8 days from now
Mhm.
would work good for you.
Exactly.
We're not violating contract. So
Exactly.
Exactly.
Perfect.
I think it's
I
fine.
think it's
Okay.
Or in 2 weeks, we're doing
I just wanted to take it
the
because I don't want to. do it
wheel
wrong
and
for months,
my
'cause
group's
then I
got
forget, then
that
I'm having
time,
to keep
so
a track record.
whatever.
I can't be that.
But that's the one who's gonna say Thursday's the day you're taking it from saying that.
Exactly. When Thursday is the day that, okay, I can't because I'm
But then
tutoring
it's
on Thursday or
also-
whatever. I mean,
Exactly.
I think that's
But how many times
So,
do people
to
take
be
it?
determined through mutual agreement of the teacher and the principal?
Okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say. Yeah.
Are we TA?
You,
Well, we can't TA the article, but the article's still waiting on
couple other things.
the things, the minutes. and
So
what's
it's
that?
almost happy.
Almost. Definitely from that section. All right. Not sure where you guys want to go through. The only other piece I brought besides the compensation discussion pieces were I brought the conversion of virtual school information into an article to be named later, but
Okay.
Up to you. How do you want to do that then?
We had asked Gail to send us the updated language, I guess you would say, so that we went through it all, we sat and went through it all. And we only have a couple minor things that we have questions on, everything that we've done. I don't know whether you want to just go through like each one, or how you want.
yeah, they can get issues resolved and sealed up, and let's do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well then, 1 through 4 are fine.
Okay.
Article 1, we had it.
Well, I think it was just a question on Article
Yeah.
1, where you had, Article 1, you had instructional technology facilitator. We're assuming that was like the ILs, now they're called facilitators. We're assuming, and the intervention support teachers, that's basically the MTSS, because that was the updated.
So double check them out there.
The language.
And that was, it
Position, yeah.
was just positions, and we're assuming that that's what, it was the ILS and MTSS.
So individual learning specialists is now, so
I'm assuming, we're
We're
thinking
assuming, we
anyway
don't
that
know.
it's instructional technology facilitator, because that's what's on here.
I've never heard of that position.
I didn't never heard of it, so I don't know.
what's the other one?
Intervention support teacher. So I don't know whether that we don't know, is that
We
the
guess.
MTSS people?
Could those be people that maybe our
Well, it's just
members
fine.
have purchased and?
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll check them with.
That's why we were curious.
Yeah, we went through when we double checked who's flagging under
Right.
instructional unit. These were the positions that flag under there.
Oh, yes,
There is one of those.
there is one on there. ILS is wrong. That's why we were like, okay, who is instructional? IT people maybe, IT people that are under
What's the way?
teachers
They're-
instead of,
I think they're that crew that shifted out as, like you're thinking the ILSs to, yeah, because they were removed to under the wing.
Yeah, because
well,
the
ILSs are still on this list.
innovative learning specialists are at our school
We
sites.
still have ILS,
Yeah.
Yeah.
bargaining unit.
I mean, I'll double check on them. And
It's got to be plain. But yeah, I'm thinking that they're IT people like that, I don't know.
But then that means they're in our bargaining unit.
There is a job description for instructional technology facilitator.
There is?
I don't know.
What's the other one?
Intervention.
Intervention support teacher.
There is a separate job description on the website for that as well.
I bet it's titled. Guaranteed intervention.
So I'm guessing MTSS.
Don't know.
Intervention support teacher reports to the principal.
But must be something that's paid out of Title I or something that's, but we don't have.
But if it's only in special schools, they get special.
Okay.
The instructional technology facilitator reports to the supervisor of instructional technology.
Which is.
So they would be IT people.
So that
Yes.
is.
Then they're in our bargaining unit. Oh, now that changes everything.
Now, this is exempt, but they do have the.
But it's-
It says.
I think clarify has to.
And let me clarify that. The job description is in the instruction, but on the job description, it says FLSA status exempt.
That's Fair Labor Standards Act.
Yeah,
Not
all teachers are exempt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But under Article 1, they're saying they're in the bargaining unit.
They are.
That's.
Because the only exception is that LS tag, it's the exemption.
They're-
Yeah.
They're bargaining us, they're.
Okay.
When did that job description was created?
Down at the bottom, all the way to the bottom,
technology facilitator was date approved 05/01/2017.
Okay.
And the instructional support teacher and emergency teacher, same day. 22nd.
What days?
Last minute,
May
May
1,
1st.
2017.
A little over your.
So they're already bargaining unit, yay.
Okay, that was one. 2 and 3 and 4 are fine.
Now you can do a happy meeting.
Okay. Yeah. 5 was the question that we had because we had asked in section
Article 5,
Section 2, under the payroll deductions, we had brought something to you first part of May about the example being like the American Fidelity. It says here employees will be given 3 additional payroll deduction slots. The slots are there. And when I spoke with Mark Cisneros, the American Fidelity is not a new company. It used to be First Federal. First Federal is already on the actual county list, from what I have been told. But First Federal became American Fidelity. So it's not a new company, it's one that Lake County has used in the past. So it should not be any problems in using Mark Cisneros or his company, let's put it that way, his people. And the section 2 was, we had added under employee in writing to LCEA and the school board for union designated economic services. Subject to the normal office check-in requirements, representatives of the union may meet with members at their work locations regarding the services at any time which does not interfere with or disrupt normal school activities. And that was in May.
And whenever I look back at that, it was that at any time, and I know it says normal activities, which I guess anything throughout the course of the day. So I guess I want to know, when are you talking about these folks meeting when?
Just like financial people that would come in, it's the same thing that they would sit there, they could meet during lunchtime or their playing time. There would not be any other time, which means, and I took this wording from a different contract.
To be honest with you, whether they're y'all people or people that have made their way in through years with us, what I don't want is teachers being harassed on the work day, whether it's folks that, like you guys mentioned before, we've had companies that, they come and speak with people. Just around the room from principals and teachers, what do you guys, because I haven't been out in you guys' schools as much, all I can do is base on what I've seen in the past. And I know if anybody's selling anything for a commission, they can get fairly aggressive.
They do, and we've had to give them very strict guidelines in certain places, certain people when they come to visit us. You've got to stay in this area, it's so difficult.
We put them in the teacher workroom.
Yeah, if the teacher goes in,
You
it's
cannot
up to
leave,
them.
right.
Yeah. and then
Exactly.
Yeah, what they do want is they want to present at a meeting, and I tell them that they can't present at a
As soon as
meeting.
you do it for one, it's like.
Do it for-
Right.
they have it every- every-
Contract prevents that.
Yeah.
But why is this under Article 5? Because there's nothing in the original Article 5 I see that has anything to do with people meeting. It's just about the deductions and stuff. Why would we put that in Article 5? I'm sure there's another place where it would be appropriate in here, but I don't see that the meeting part would be in Article 5. This is, so doesn't seem like it fits everyone.
Maybe it's because certain ones of these deduction things are people that would meet with their people.
But honestly, if I were looking at the contract either as a teacher or an administrator and looking for something about that, I wouldn't even look at the part because it says dues and payroll deductions. I think there's going to be another place where that's more appropriate.
That's,
Okay.
I mean, I would say keep it out front so we don't forget about it, but this just doesn't seem like it's the right place to me. Does anybody disagree?
I know somewhere there's a line, a section about not doing financial services or encouraging business during faculty meetings. And I'm not sure where that's at, but I know that line, that section is in there, because I've had to call a couple of principals on that.
I just remember as a teacher, and that's, I worry about a little bit like, the teacher mailboxes are in the workroom, whatever. I mean, I'd be like, well, I'll check my mail later. I just, because I feel there's stress that comes along with that.
Usually what happens, like with AXA,
Uh-huh.
I use them. They send out a notice saying, we will be in the mailroom such and such a day.
Okay.
So anyone who wants to talk to us can come down there.
My people just go eat their donuts and walk out.
and many of them do. Many of them.
Nothing wrong with that.
So
Many of them do.
in the appropriate place, some type of, I mean, how is actually usually, so you're saying they would notice the principal that they're gonna be on campus.
Oh, yeah.
And if we need all that anyway, just all the safety stuff we got going on anyway.
And then
Yes.
American Fidelity has done the same thing on other schools. We will be here on such and such a date. We will meet in your whatever room you tell us, and anyone interested can come by.
But my question is, why would we not have allowed them to come? Have they
He's
been
not
approved?
been able to come. I went to the
He's
health.
not an approved, they're not an approved vendor?
Well, he should be, and that's what he's saying, but I think it's gotten confused because they're American Fidelity now, where it used to be First Federal, and then when he's gotten over to the county office before, he has gotten,
And this is where my question is with this, because there's nobody else that, any other vendor, if they're an approved vendor and they contact the school, if they contact me and say they want to set up, I will do the same thing as if I do for everybody else. So that's why I'm asking why.
Okay. Usually it was because Brown and Brown had exclusive contracts, so only their people could come in and do things like that. So American Fidelity offers.
That's an insurance company.
They offer
Okay, that's right.
a policy that is better than Aflac, but Brown and Brown, in their contract, limited anybody else because they didn't get a commission off of it.
Okay, so that's why
But now we no longer have
the
Brown and
difference
Brown,
because.
so that shouldn't be an issue.
But my question is, the other thing is because it's insurance. Everybody else that we have allowed vendors to come in has only been 4, 3, whatever, that kind of stuff. So that's why I was asking.
Aflac was able to go in, wherever a lot other folks were,
During the school day?
yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think we had insurance people in there. I think we just had all 4, 3.
Yeah, I only remember the guys.
Yeah, we didn't have anybody from insurance come. It was always investment people. I never had anything.
and again, that was because Aflac was the only one that was allowed to go in
Well,
because of the
And
money
in all
and the
fairness, then,
commission.
when we do the for our benefit, the insurance, when we sit down with them, Aflac is part of that presentation and discussion. So they're there in that
They're
sense.
there already, and
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
But just because, I don't know if this is relative or not, but just because they have been cleared by the district doesn't necessarily mean they're only up and up because we had an issue with one that I had to report, and he had to, it took, you wouldn't even believe what he was saying. And so I took it first to my mother, and then I took it, well, anyway, so he could not be in the district. I think they can't him for 3 to 4 years, and then he redid it all, and he's back now. But every time I see that name pop up, I go, oh.
Was that a, Terry, was that a 4-1-4-3 something?
We have an approved list for 403B vendors. They have to go through the TSA. So there are only certain people that can offer that service. But insurance, that's something totally different.
So they're able to, you got the slots, so we're good in that section. And it's really just make sure they're not being denied access is what you're concerned with.
Right.
I want to check, because I also, we
I
still
thought you
got
already checked that, yeah.
so I know Brown & Brown's out as far as the health insurance and vision and dental, but I think there's some other things. Was it in the vision, dental, and health and all that where it was, the contract language was? That kind of,
You want in here now?
no, I'm saying in their district's contract. You know,
That's just what I was told.
Okay. All right, let's, I think so when we get too hung up on, I'd like to go back to Lauren
That's the only thing.
and see, I mean, as long as there's slots there, we can find an appropriate place, if there is something that's necessary to be there.
I was just saying, Article 10, in section 10, solicitation of non-instructional materials. It seems like that might be a place. There's a one-sentence article there that it might be a good addition to that part.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
What section was that, Dave?
10.
Article 10, section 10.
10.
Yeah.
As far as you guys have, so I remember you said you guys do pull some dividends from them. Do you guys have like a contract or something that you do some documentation so I can put eyes on it? Because there's more to ask. I guess, because when y'all first presented that, you said, oh, we got part ownership in that company. And then last time you said it was like some koozies sometimes, but is there any benefit that you guys draw from that company was a question that I had that day when we were discussing it. Do you guys have a contract with them?
We own shares.
Okay. And I think the main thing is I just want to make sure there's no conflict. I want to check with, I said probably be finance and Mr. Johnson in combination with maybe Mr. Monk and see if that's fine. I doubt y'all are pulling in a windfall. So, and even if you signed up 200 people probably wouldn't, you know, but I just want to double check.
It's more of a service to the person who signs up.
I figured that. I just want to make sure legally that you guys are covered and we're covered on that. I'm sure it's not an issue. I mean, the auditor has to dig pretty darn deep to figure that out.
Yeah, we were just a shareholder.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I mean, Mark, the gentleman, he literally sets everything up before the beginning of the school. So, let's say Villages Elementary, you know, their date may be in April, but they already know it at the beginning of the school year because he sets it up the whole year. He knows that his people are gonna be this day at this time at this school, and this day at this time at this school, and it's all set up. It's not just the day before, hey, can I come to your school? And
Well, I don't know, the more professional they are, the more people they're gonna get.
And they bring cookies.
really good.
Very professional.
Bring
Bring
in
those donuts or
food.
cookies, there you go.
Yes.
And then, of course,
LCEA brings in lunch, so.
6 is fine.
Okay, so
And
5 are
7.
okay, and we'll find a new home for you, and you said they were 6.
Yes. And 6
Okay,
and 7
okay,
and 8
okay.
Yay, let's mark them all.
and 9. Okay. And then we are on 10, teaching conditions. And I guess one of our questions is on the very first section, section 1. Paragraph A, where it talks about the duties of student supervision. I'll kind of do a little bit of background. And I know we've gone back and forth and discussing the duties and the scheduling and so forth. It talks about you guys call it the leadership team. And I don't know whether we want to still call it that or whatever, but it comprises the different faculty, the non-load bearing, load bearing, and so forth. And you continue, and then it says, this plan will include equitable rotation procedures in determining the assignments. I guess we were kind of curious as to why the one portion was left out of that, like we had put in, I believe, was it in 15? When we said for all instructional staff who hold a current teaching certification. In other words, everybody should be doing this just as if they were doing it for the substitution portion. It should be the same language. And I know we talked a lot about the substituting where it would be the all instructional staff that holds the teaching certification. We were wondering why that language wasn't in this portion also.
I remember there was some discussion over like your guidance folks being available the first 2 weeks of school. Sometimes it might be difficult in mornings and things like that. It's kind of goes back to the schools being so different. I have no problem with everyone being considered, and I think that's what you guys have mentioned in the past also, that leadership team is going to make those decisions. So allowing that autonomy to still exist within that leadership team where you guys are represented, it's fine. So I guess, how do we word that to where?
Kathy, I have a note here from March 12th that has that exact language in this new language.
And
Yeah,
that's
it wasn't-
what I'm asking, because what was sent from,
It was actually,
From
the exact
Gail.
phrase you used is right here.
Yeah.
and it's not in this one.
Yeah, March 12th was the date.
And that's why we're questioning it,
It
because
starts
we
about
thought,
2/3 of the way down.
Yeah.
This plan will include equitable rotations, and then it says for all instructors and equitable alternatives.
and that's why I said we had asked for what she had done before,
Yeah, and smiley face is the credential.
and that's why I did not,
It
that's why we didn't make copies or
says
anything
for
either,
all
because it was
instructional
like,
staff
Yes,
is the one you've got, right?
That's why we asked Gail to give us,
That might have been just a transitional.
and that's why we're just making sure that,
A commission of an omission.
There you go.
Okay.
can we put you
Sure.
Is that code?
So we got,
It's working together.
we're adding the sentence from 312, or, is that-
Yeah, I didn't do it already.
And then it continues until section 14. Well, unless you want to do, you said 10-10, unless you want to go back to 10 first, where Dave was saying, if you want to add the one little,
I mean, I think we should, if it's necessary that we do that.
So 10 currently reads, teachers shall not be required to attend meetings held for the solicitation of non-instructional materials. What do you
What is
have?
that section?
10-10. We're still,
Okay.
That's the whole thing right there.
That's it.
That's it, yep, I'm
So
with that.
So that-
does that cover what you're asking for here or not?
Well, just to be in addition to.
will be in addition to the only, well, yes, I mean, it could be put in there, I just put something in there about the normal check-in procedures, but for solicitation and non-instructional materials. Of course, that's materials, that's not,
The check-in, check-out, we're gonna, you're talking about.
yeah, you're gonna do that
safety
anyway, that's
stuff
separate,
Yeah.
that's safety stuff, you're gonna do that.
You have to get those things.
The only other thing I would ask is, are we going to put something with the health insurance somewhere in? Because if we were going to put something in about the insurance, then this might possibly could go in with that. Otherwise, yeah, it could be added here. Representatives of the union may meet with members of the work locations regarding these services and
During the instructional period.
during.
But is that something still that Chad has to check with?
There are some things I want to check on,
Yeah, that would be,
but that would be the section.
That would be the place where it would.
All right.
Okay.
okay, so then back to 14. We were questioning in the observation, the teacher involved has 24-hour notification will be given for the learning walks and people visiting and so forth.
Mhm.
In one of mine back in October, where we had asked for 2, we were thinking that it, you guys still wanted 4, but then we settled on 3, we thought. And this still says 4. So is it 3 or is it 4? Is why we were,
I know we had talked about it, and,
or did we actually come to a conclusion? I don't know.
well, basically, limiting, we didn't want folks to expand into things that were crazy, but 4, if it wasn't,
Was this doing learning walks or something?
I mean, what, I guess define going back to a district team. So when we're talking about the 4 people visiting, is that 4 people from the district plus the principal plus a coach, and then it winds up being 6? Is that what the concern is? Or
8 or 10.
Or the whole team from your school and the 4 that come from the county and the principals, and the assistant principals.
I know some of our learning walk days, there were probably large groups in 4.
Yes.
Um,
That's when we do principal meetings that's held at schools and we conduct learning walks.
They all agreed to this,
So,
Dave?
the teachers that we go in and see.
So,
Well, but that's kind of hard too, because, you know, the principal's asking the teacher, hey, can we come into your room? Is the teacher really going to say no?
I mean, a lot of times I volunteer.
You didn't volunteer. Everybody wants to see.
like I say, they don't take you to the work.
Yeah, but going back. Just a reminder on the discussion, it isn't for us. This is
Yeah.
elementary school when you're trying to hold the attention of little sprats. I mean, you come into our classroom, we're fine, stuff like that, but the 7, 8-year-olds, I mean, that's the problem. Terry?
Yes. we
Yeah,
have-
that was that part of that
we have-
discussion.
True high school
We actually have teachers crying, actually, it is ridiculous.
We also talked about it in terms of science and safety.
Labs, right? Safety
It was
labs?
safety.
Yeah.
You're right.
Have we had accidents?
No. But it just, if I'm doing a lab and we've got Bunsen burners on and I'm trying to watch the whole room, I can't have other people blocking my view of, if they're walking around talking to students, I have to be able to see my whole classroom. I don't want extra people wandering around. But the shepherd always asks if they come in.
And I've had the caution back in my day of some of the people from the county wearing high heels, walking around tables on the floor, which is okay by OSHA, but typically closed-toed shoes, so I've had to caution people they can't go into certain areas because they've had high heels on around tables running across the floor and a trip hazard.
And that's a problem when you get in the older schools, because I know my principal's done everything to try to get them in the ceiling, but they can't do it. So we have to tape all the wires down to the floor. There's no way the county can do it in a cost-effective way.
So it can be a safety issue as well.
I'm not exactly sure I can go for the safety issue. I understand when you've got Bunsen burners and stuff like that going on, and I would hope that the principal's gonna talk to you about that at the same time. You got a cool lab going on, and they might be showing it off too, so I mean, and a lot of what they're doing, here's the problem that I get from Emily whenever I discuss this with her, is that, look, part of what we're doing is training for administrators to be better. It's not evaluative towards the teachers. I'm gonna be honest with you, the teacher cries when those folks come in the classroom. That's not good. I mean, for either side. I get it, it's stressful, but I mean, we're all professionals. I mean, there's agreement. We're not trying to stress anybody out. We're push them over the edge. But I mean, if they've got notification of classroom visits coming, and it's an exercise to try and prove what the administrators are doing whenever they do their observations in classrooms. And
Well, this is the issue. You have various classrooms, and you will have a teacher that works very well with her students, and she loves them. But you might have runners in that group, so that group comes in, and they might just take off right out the door. So you've got to deal with that. There are just so many issues involved in the situation.
I mean, I think we can have hypothetical issues all over the place, but what's actually happening? Are there accidents happening? Are there runners flying out the door, seeing the door open? Because I feel like the principals have got some pretty sound judgment on what.
That's fair. So let's talk about a specific thing that did happen.
Okay.
And again, I'm on film. I maintain that the previous administration from DeVaries was full of a lot of not competent people. So there was an inspection in an elementary school. And this was during we gotta have the learning objective, and we gotta have the this, and we gotta have the that, and the common board, and it was not rolled out at all correctly, one man's opinion. Poor assistant principals, with 35 different things and stuff. So one of the district people turned to a young student and said, so tell me what the learning objective is. And the student was concerned and nervous and gave the wrong answer. And the district person said, that's wrong! That's wrong! And the student cried. Now, part of this is going to be the trust that comes with the next generation.
Yeah.
But, this is a tough one. Can we go back to interest-based bargaining maybe? Because there's some trust issues that I could go into some more. But I don't think the kind of people that were there are there. And I know I'm protected on the high school level. It's literally, come on in. But Emily has a position, and I don't disagree with it. As transition director, they have a right and a say into the education process. I know very few teachers that would really disagree with that and would probably, so the issue is, we know you're coming, or this is really not the best time for that. And I did mention this to Emily at one point as far as, really building, if I might go on a tangent, please, really building relationships. She has administrative assistants. I don't know the level or whatever, but I told her if the director of transition sent me an email and copied my principal a day before she wanted to come in and asked if it was a good time, if that worked for me, I would be damn impressed. And I would give an honest answer. And it seems to me that, one of the things Emily said is we're not looking to surprise. And I take her at her word. And I have in my head very clearly, again, my situation's different because I have a principal that protects us. But I know at Lake Mineola High School, there is a real wall between observation and walkthrough, right? But it's not that way every place else. And I think that kind of communication between Emily's assistant or team or whatever and the elementary school teachers would go a long
Some of
way.
the high school.
What's that?
Even some of the high school.
Yeah, I mean, it's, that was my one solution, if you will.
So if you had something that geared towards the teachers, an objection to, I don't know, how do we, because most of the time, like, I guarantee, she's got somebody that's going to freak out and start crying and falling apart.
I'm not gonna do that.
No, she's not trying to
Yeah.
demoralize
Next year,
anybody.
And I view it differently. I view it as a time for us to shine. I view it as a time for us to show off what we're doing. And the other thing is like, just last week, and we sent out the memo, and it gave all the dates of when people are going to visit schools. So, you share that with your department, you'll know, and when it's your time, well, we're not on it because we did it last year. So what we're doing is they have an opportunity to say, here, the district will be conducting learning walks during this time. And then we'll get with, in our leadership team, we'll share that information then, and then we'll give it back to the staff to say, hey, if there's anybody interested that want to come, you can. So that gives them enough notice.
Absolutely.
And Emily will always get one of those individually, those who are hosting 3 weeks at a time. Say,
Yeah, and we'll send
here's a letter for you to send to your staff, has all the information, she put that together already.
Yeah.
So that will go to every principal, because I know sometimes we say, well, that principal's not in the room, how are they gonna know? She does that on a regular basis. And so we have time to sit there and work with our staff. Who's gonna be that we're gonna visit for whatever reason. And she does not give us any restrictions on who to visit. She doesn't say, we have to see an ELA 9th grade, She says, you take us where you want us to go, and we get to do that.
And we just try to give a variety, we kind of focus on those tested areas, we do.
I
Well,
hear,
I think if your kids, if you've prepared your kids that someone's coming in, that's a lot different than if they just show up and walk in at that exact moment, because that's very different for elementary than it might be for other grade levels, I think.
which is
but I'm
where
not
I was
sure.
going. Is this necessary, a contract issue? And right now I'm in that for 2 reasons. One, I'm going to give up right now, trust based on experience. Okay, I'm trusting the new versus the old, so I'm giving that up. The other one is you guys are the best principals I've ever met. And so are there principals out there that a teacher cannot honestly say, tomorrow would not be a good time, that the principal would push back and say, I'm getting a yes. That's my concern and why I'm keeping it as a contract. I'm participating in the contract discussion. You guys, I got it. Poor Mrs. Shepherd, I begged them to come see my classroom. I wanted to show up, but it was...
And she didn't do it?
No, it's not her choice. We put in this regional crap and we had Cockcroft. And, thank God he's retired. Couldn't drag him to our side of the hall. Okay? Probably didn't get his bonus because of social status,
I think though, I feel fortunate that at least this past year, I think I developed enough trust with my teachers that if they're having an issue, I I know some of them don't feel comfortable talking to administration, but I am good at intervening for them. But I think that's really the first year that that's happened. But I think a lot of people forget that high school, we always think about the elementary, and I think that's true, but I think at our high school, one of the problems that we have is that since our school is not brand new, a lot of our classrooms are really small. And when you have 4 people in a class that really shouldn't even have 25 people in it, that creates a problem. But I also think that we have a lot of, probably in the last year, we've had more issues with students who have had legal issues that have been problematic outside of the classroom. And we've had a lot of health issues between being bipolar and that kind of thing, and even some of our EBD to the extreme. And a lot of times, that's not a good day for them. And so it might have been noticed and the class might have been ready, but I know one of the years that I was in class, I had a student who was on his meds go absolutely crazy. And by everybody's standards, I mean, he was calling the N-word, you know, everything. And I literally was in between. And I guess some people might have said that he should have been taken out of the classroom, but if he was taken out of the classroom, someone would have been hurt. And so I stayed between him and I had the trust of those students that they knew that I was going to stay between them. But what I'm saying though is, if a teacher doesn't feel comfortable in talking to either the administrator or the coach to say, today is not a good day. That's different if it's always, if it's a pattern, that every time is not a good time. But I do think that our country make the best laid plans. And luckily, one of the things that we've tried to do with the learning walks and that kind of thing is that we have a couple of extra on board that may not be visited, but should there be a problem, that's going to be our backup. That's going to be our backup plan.
Right.
Or if a teacher's absent or something like that, we might pull someone else. But that goes to forward thinking with some people, and that's not always.
It goes to culture.
Yes.
It goes to culture, and we have, and you don't have that uniformly throughout the district. Question for simplicity. Liz said it. Is there just something that we can put in language that says, and I agree, it can't be habitual. A teacher can basically say, now tomorrow's not a good time.
Or it might even have to be today.
Or something like that. I'm hearing that there's a lot of advanced stuff, and I'm giving up my trust issue, okay? Phil Patinas is not going to come in my classroom anymore and challenge me. I'm not asking enough higher order questions, too many recall questions. That's gone. Those people are gone. So I have seen personally a lot of great work and open-mindedness when it came to the observation. Remember names on the walkthrough. The files had names on them. We asked why. The names are off. So I'm comfortable we're working together the way we should on that. I'm hearing that Emily's doing a good job of prepping the principals. I know these principals are doing it. It's a culture. If the other principals, so is Liz's, we have in here leadership teams. You know, we've negotiated that in several key parts. It's going to be up to them to make sure that the principals follow that negotiated strategy. But is there just some simple language that says whatever it all says, and I'm sorry, I was looking for.
What are you proposing?
I'm proposing that a teacher has rights or words. A teacher may request that the walkthrough happen another day. I mean, and if you have an abusive one that, you know, it never happens, isn't that an issue?
Are you talking about the district walkthroughs?
Yes.
Another day?
Yes. I'm not talking about my APs at all. They come in time. They're part of my team. Right?
But I think that's why the original, when we were talking about it, it became 3, thinking that 3 from district But then you would still have 1 or 2 possibly from your actually school, which means you'd still have 4 or 5, even 6 people in your room. Which, there again, some of those people, your students would know those people. So you wouldn't have that many more people. You would have up to 3 different people that your students may not know, I think is what the original intent was of why we had brought it down from the 4 to the 3. Not saying that 3 totally could only be in your room, it was 3 from the district level, which is what it says, if district teams of 4 or more. We're not talking about what's the
I
school.
mean, under that circumstance, I mean, does that make sense? What the principal?
I will tell you, the one school that you would have expected to have a whole lot of issues with, okay, with groups of 6, 7 going into a classroom, would have been Lake Hills. Okay?
Did what?
It would have been Lake Hills. But I'm going to tell you,
Oh my gosh.
I am going to tell you,
They have tours all the time.
Yeah, I
oh
think
my
we're
word,
discussing this.
those kids were so,
Yeah, they have tours going through Lake Hills all the time.
So, telling us, we had a year of celebration with no DA school. Likely having 2 coming back on. Granted, they're not at the point to where state's gonna be all up our nose, and I doubt that it'll continue in that direction. If I had to bet, it'll bounce back in the right direction. But it was some of that also, when you got into, there's some language somewhere else, isn't there, that says to their state, like, verification, because I don't want to tie Katie's hands also. If Katie's got certain things
when it's state, you have no choice. You have no choice.
I just really feel like 4 or more is fine because that tells you it is 4 or more. But that still means that the superintendent can drop by, Kate, Emily and myself can walk into classrooms anywhere. And because one of our goals is to make our practice public. I mean, to share everything and so that we can all collaborate and get better. And, I feel like, the learning walk tool, taking the teachers' names off and all that, completely, I think that was a great compromise. But as far as, they're already getting 24 hours notice when possible. Obviously, if something is going down in the classroom, we're not going to go in there. I mean, I've had, somebody stripped down, and wouldn't get up. Okay, no, we're not going to be going in there right now. And that is a professional thing, and we're just going to go to another classroom than somebody else, because we're going to write it.
Even when I was part of the walkthrough of
Yeah.
Lake Hills on that particular day, a classroom was switched because a student was not having a good.
Right. We were in a classroom, and
So they
the kid went into a seizure. They were doing what they did, but we just quietly just walked out. I mean, that's a professional thing, but I personally think what's in here is absolutely fine, and we had a whole day of our administrators, our whole last day of our leadership academy was all about building culture.
But
I think that's why, when you just said it, you said if superintendent and Emily and somebody else comes and then yourself, that's your 4, but that's 3 from the county. That's what I had brought it, because it says if district teams of 4 or more. That's why I said we.
I'm hearing 2 different things here. I'm hearing us discussing the number, and then I'm hearing them talk about getting with the teacher to make sure good day, not good day. I get that. And I'm going to kind of go back to the language that was originally in the article that was struck, and that's district school administrative supervisor personnel and other authorized personnel walkthroughs by those people may occur only after consent given by the building administrator and after conferring with the teacher. I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So I think we've had a lot of conversation around it. And that conversation between the building level administrator and the teacher is, hey, are we ready for this or not? And it sounds like the language we struck and have moved away from actually might be the best language.
It's not even struck now.
Well, on the sample I have, that through one of our discussions, yeah, it's not struck in my original note, right?
No, it's not revised.
I think some of the teachers though feel that there's, if they say no. And, I've been under one that I've seen that happen, not anytime recently, but is there any repercussion for it? You know, I would venture to say any reasonable administrator, if a teacher says, no, not today because, you know, I got this, I would venture to say that any reasonable administrator would.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, Dave, I agree on the language.
Yeah, and I think
It says big,
I
it
think
says
the
big.
culture that's being built in this county right now
Yes.
would give that administrator the comfort to be able to have the conversation, whereas prior, maybe we would have felt pressured that, no, I can't stop now because they gotta come see whatever.
But now there would be,
Right.
stuff happens. I mean, and we don't want to put, if something's going on in the classroom, nobody needs to be evaluating this child and what's going on, the teacher. Right?
We feel like we have more flexibility
Exactly.
in that area now. You
So
see
we
what I'm
could
saying?
just say, no, we're not going in there right now, we have a situation, we're gonna go down here.
So, could we put something in saying, if extenuating circumstances occur, that classroom, supplemental classroom will be observed, or something of that nature? Or is that even necessary? I guess on the emergency stuff, it seems like you're not going, that's gonna occur, and then you're gonna move on, you're not gonna do it anyway. So, I don't, I guess, so the language protects them with the notice and the administrator conferring with, I'm not sure we can prevent, you know, words on paper, I'm not sure we can prevent somebody not being, comfortable with telling their administrator no, but.
Well, I think if you use the languages there, then maybe say something like, if deemed necessary, through the conversation or something, an alternative location can be selected or something like that.
I know the competence on testing.
I mean,
I would certainly say that there would be a grievable offense if a teacher asked the building administrator to say no, and then they said yes and brought people in there. Based on the contract language that existed.
That's what I was thinking too.
It's
Yeah, I don't want to go there, I want to go with the culture's going to change.
Yeah, we don't want to go grievances,
Yeah.
and again, the reasonable administrator is going to go, I got you.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't protect what's going on. I mean, it's our school and our teachers. And so, no, we're not gonna
And
do
I
it.
believe that's the
So-
expectation.
And that would be the expectation.
It's not that way everywhere.
And I think what we said, we've got to deal with those individuals and start, grouping us all into one. Call them out. I mean, that's what I would say, call them out.
we do not want teachers picked on.
Right.
And here's the thing, if somebody, let's say we've got an administrator that doesn't have the level of judgment that we wish they had, they're gonna be pestering them when district administrator's not there, to be honest with you. That's when they're gonna be messing with them. It's not gonna be when we're there. So I think they know that, I think they see the standard that myself and superintendent Emily bring. They're not gonna go there while we're there. So,
Chad, I'm not saying anything, but maybe that what needs to take place with all these new principals and stuff, there needs to be a review of this contract.
I was going to bring that up later.
Thank you. That is perfect.
And you weave in the culture ideas like the leadership
That is
team, et
what we
cetera.
need.
No,
and possibly some non-new ones.
Yes, I was thinking about
I don't think it's
Especially with the
changes, we made a lot of changes in the whole
Absolutely.
book, I think it should be gone through.
It would be
In
good for
our
everybody to
culture
have it.
day was
Every
phenomenal.
teacher, every
Our
administrator.
leadership day, it was very good.
My thoughts are, as a whole, both APs and principal group, the idea is that they will get the highlight changes, we'll be talking them through them. And then there'll be a subgroup that they need a full review of new principals going in, because even coming from one district to another, there's so much difference in what's okay and what's not.
Is there, and this is off but on, is there a time when principals and VPs will be together to go over this? And the reason why I ask this is I have heard different things. Sometimes when I talk to my administrator, there'll be a different take on something, and then when I talk to APs, sometimes there's a different take. And sometimes I think something might be there might be something lost in translation.
There's been a lot of that in the past.
And I'm just wondering if it's a possible thing for them to be together. I know you can't do it when school starts, but is there something that could be done prior, that they're all together, or at a time when there's no kids? I'm just curious, I'm pointing it out because there has had, in the past, there been some issues.
No, it's definitely something that we're trying to figure out what's the best way to present it. Probably, we try not to, depending on the size of your school, when you have an AP meeting, you know, that wipes out a lot of folks. I know they don't send them all at once, but then if principals are going through buildings, we gotta keep the building put together.
Even if we did a webinar, or, you know, that plug.
Yeah.
That little camera thing, you know.
I just think it'd be kind of nice if there was a way to do it together.
So the answer is, I'll look into seeing how we can do that, because trust me, it helps me tons, if they're familiar. So back to,
So we still on 10.
Okay.
All right, so then it sounds like, and then the only other thing, 18 with the wording of, because I think we changed it again.
no, I've got 18 new wording here, all we have to do.
No, I mean section 18 of 10,
Yeah,
because now it's no longer PD, but it's not leadership and learning.
here, it's coming around to you, this is the language
It's
that,
not professional learning / leadership.
That's right, professional.
I mean,
Change the name of it.
I was about ready to just say, can we just put,
now we've got the section 18 that myself, you and Amy met on, with the changes in it. You'll glance over that.
and that's the only thing.
It's not even a department name, it's just the item, okay. Lordy, lordy.
I work some directors and then it can stay the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I suggest we take a 15-minute break. And then if I can have, I can talk to my folks afterwards, we'll take a 15-minute break right now, give them the time and restrooms and, any objection? That's all right, Kathy has this for
No, it's this one. Enough, let's move on.
So I know it's hard. And force.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. we propose doing a collaborative bargaining on the whole 4 people issue. Because as we sat and talked, which 4 people are you talking? These are the groups of people who have been involved in walkthroughs at one time or another, in one school or another. You've got the CRT, the ILS, the department director, the grade chair, the principal, the assistant principal, program specialist, guidance, literacy coach, Emily, regional director, the academic coordinator, and the ESOL people. And the reason we put the 4 in to begin with, a couple of years back, 3 or 4 years, because teachers were complaining that they're trying to teach a class, that they're being held to a standard, that their evaluation may depend on, and there's 8 to 10 people standing along the walls around their room. And that's the reason we put the limit of 4 in there to begin with. So now we've got a learning block with 4 people, with all of these people tagging along in some cases. That's potentially a problem. So we'd like to do this as a collaborative planning exercise.
So you're saying all these people are in classroom at once?
In some cases, yes.
Yes.
No.
In some schools,
I'm not buying that.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yes.
in some schools they are,
That
yes.
may be because, I will tell you, the last ones that we've had, we haven't had all those people in there.
Nope, not even.
And my question also is that,
Stuart, you don't even have the ESC specialist up there.
I don't have the ESC specialist.
And that was in my room too.
so all those people were in your room at the same time?
Every leadership team, every member of the leadership team, the AP, the principal.
At one time?
At one time, and the people from the county.
When
When was that?
What was this?
How long ago?
Not when you were here.
Okay, because it's a new
Yeah.
point now, that the whole structure has changed. They don't do it like that anymore. I know what you're talking about, because I was in VA. And you're right, it could have been 8 people. But now, the way that it's done, if anybody comes to yours from the district, we think that APs have one time a month, principals have one time a month. We visit one school. So in a year, in a 9-week school year, you might have one time that more than 4 people might visit your classroom. You'll be notified, we already know what day we're being visited. We can tell you that. We're going to ask for volunteers. And if you have an emergency, we're going to have a backup so we don't come into your classroom in case you have Johnny Nude or something. And it's one time a year for maybe 10 minutes. One time a year, 10 minutes. And you know that.
Out of the rotation because.
And then we're out of the rotation.
Yeah, like we're not in a rotation in East Ridge, it's not, we were in last year, so.
Okay, so you're not.
I know they're visiting my school this year, it's November.
So not even every school was one time a year?
No,
Yeah.
it was only, how many visits did we do, like 8? And the
Yeah, my
APs
school-
did maybe
yeah.
8, so it
My
was 16.
school did get a visit last year.
Right.
So I'm
My
on
school did. I had
So
Janice.
I'm on there for November. this
Every
year.
school that's on there this year, it was not on last year.
And
They're all different.
I'll ask for volunteers if who wants to have their classroom. And then if there's an emergency that day, they can say, now's not a good time. I'll be like, okay, we'll go somewhere, go to so else.
And we found out last week.
Yeah.
It'll be
I'm putting it up right now.
So, yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Claremont Elementary, Fruitland Park Elementary, Berries Elementary, Lost Lake Elementary, Eustis Elementary, Sawgrass Elementary. From Milton High School to Berry High, South Lake High, Claremont Elementary,
today.
Eustis High, Newburgh High.
Sign.
So how many total was that?
All right.
That's the top one for me, please.
For elementary, that's
Out of your, how many elementary schools you have?
22.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Out of the middle and high, 8 and 8, 16. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So
And then you have, let me go back, and then you have assistant principals and meetings.
Which is the day after, I so it's the same number.
They're at Astor, Oak Park, Seminole Springs, Carver, Groveland, and Pine Ridge. That's it. And they're there from 8 till 11. 8 to 11 on one group and 12:30 to 3:30 on the next group.
You know, like 15 minutes, and usually you say like 10.
And normally in those groups, there are probably right about 6 or 7 people.
For 10
Max.
minutes.
Do we even stay 10 minutes anymore?
These schools are so big and we're on a 15-minute thing, so to get to the next one, you have to, you know, I mean, there's time to.
So all of those people there, I don't
I don't know anything about that.
this hadn't been before this new regime came in.
Well, and that, but my question, it goes back to what I asked before, if it was under a DA
So
type situation,
we don't have a
and
choice on
our
that.
hands are tied with that anyway, we've got to, if that's got to occur,
I don't
however,
think they're wrong.
I don't think that's an accurate representation of what's going on.
She said it was about.
Now granted, I know more than 4 people are going in on learning walking days, but if it's, say, 6 at each level.
Yeah, because this group just graduated.
Yeah.
It's that group that just graduated.
I will make a comment on this one. I know some of this may be assumptions too, but I actually have the tool on my phone. So when I do it, I don't handwrite and do that, I do it on the phone.
Right, but we
I'm
are
not
not
checking
doing
it
on the phone.
I'm not checking it, I promise.
I know.
I don't have time.
What does that mean?
I think they thought the administrators were on the phone or on email,
Checking
and what we're
email
doing is
instead of
we do
actually-
our evaluation. You know, she puts the thing on there so we can do it on our
Learn
phone.
about
Right.
it, so you do it on your phone.
Right. Oh, so people log in, people are on their phone?
Yeah, checking in.
But it's not evaluating.
What?
None of this
It's
is,
not evaluating.
No, but it's electronic, so you can put it on there.
it's a tool, a Google tool. And it's not about it. It's
No.
for collecting trend data.
So all right, it's up on the board and we're talking about it. I mean, what's,
Learning Walk has nothing to do with the team evaluation system.
Absolutely not.
Zero. It cannot cross
What
it.
I really think is we need to go back to the old ETC strategy or the ER&D. No, about this. When they come through, they need to tell, because I've got beginning teachers that I have to spend hours with after school, building them back up and building their self-esteem up. And it's a killer for me.
This year, this last year? This last year?
Yeah, and the year before.
But just look at black.
So let's just talk about, if they would tell them 3 things that they did great, instead of, and then 1 thing that they need to improve on, instead of saying,
but that's.
Your
not
introduction-
evaluation. That's not even,
We
that's
never
not the
got-
intent of what they're not evaluating what's.
It's
We're
trend
not
data about what
evaluating
we
anything.
did
All you
when we were.
document is what you saw. It's not good, bad, or indifferent. You're right, she never said that. She said, don't bring your judgment. What did you see?
So it
That's
sounds
it.
like we need guidelines on learning walk.
Maybe that's it, because the section we're talking about starts out with observations of a teacher's class. Well, maybe we need to get that word observation out of there, because it's not really an observation. It's not an observation of the teacher. So maybe it's just we have to reword, we have to rethink what that section is.
That's a good point, I never thought of that.
Yeah. So maybe we need to better
Observation does
definition
tend to
of
make
the
it
learning walk, purpose, and who's involved and why.
That's exactly it.
That's,
So this.
Maybe that's where we need to go back to.
Well, I mean,
And we're basically looking at.
Emily already had
We're not
sent out
looking
that
at
thing.
a
I'm
teacher.
assuming. Linda, did you get something from Dr. White? Were you visited last year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
January.
Did Dr. Westcott send something to you to give to your teachers?
In advance, she sent a template of what you could, but if you wanted to add or do whatever you do with your team.
Well, I didn't give it to everybody because whoever volunteered
Right, you had already talked
wanted
to
to
them.
do it, then that's who we went to. So
But she
we
does
only-
send
I
something
only
out in
did
case
like-
people didn't, she sends that whole set about where all you're doing is putting in your names and you're going and doing
Well,
what she said.
but we've shared the learning walk tool with the faculty.
Yeah.
So they
My
will know
teachers have
exactly
been
what we're
learning, my
looking
teachers
for.
have been learning walks and other people's walk for,
You know, so
Okay, so we're adding 2. Teachers are now doing learning walks of other people's classrooms.
No teachers
Just
were,
said
it
that.
was just us.
to see what, they like to go into other people's
Yeah.
classrooms. So one of the things that we did, because they wanted to know what is this about, is show them what a learning walk is, and they got to go into other people's classroom and check out what the students were learning. And they thought it was wonderful.
and did you ask the teachers beforehand of the classrooms that they were going to?
Yeah.
Oh, when they do
Yeah.
peer stuff with me.
Yeah.
I did something similar called it model classroom walks, but it was only by volunteer teachers who said, yes, I want to show off, this is what I'm doing. I said, great, then I'll allow people to join your room.
It's a good idea, but.
Yeah, no, I would never send people into a teacher's class who didn't feel comfortable, with the exception of November 13th. But I'm gonna also ask for people who tell me they want to be evaluated on that day, and that's who I'm gonna put first. I gotta fill in, I'll go ask others, but.
Hey, that's smart.
I agree with Amy. I think that it's,
Be evaluated on that day.
No, observe that. But even the observation makes
But
it
you
sound.
used evaluation, didn't you?
right.
And see, that's the,
Yeah,
where
that-
folks are getting mixed messages.
Right. It's not evaluation, it's,
So can you use a different term instead of observation, as Amy's saying, do, visitations of a teacher's classroom, or
Yeah,
a
well,
review of a
If we
teacher's
just leave it
classroom?
at the learning walks.
if we're calling them learning walks,
Well, but she's saying, like in the original, well, section 14 starts off saying observations of the teacher's class. And it is true, when the teacher sees the word observation, they are thinking that they are evaluated on that because it says observation. So if you say visitation of a teacher's class,
for the purpose of a learning walk. I like
or,
that.
something to that effect,
That
rather
would be
than,
perfect. That would work.
Yeah.
because then they're gonna say, okay, they're just visiting my room, it's not like they're,
Yeah. Nothing's gonna come of it.
Because they don't want it referred back to. when
Nothing's
they're
gonna come back on them.
evaluation.
I think it's powerful for teachers to be able to go and visit other teachers' classrooms. I mean, I wish a lot of times it's unfortunate because the classrooms they like to go visit don't coordinate with their schedule.
Yeah.
So we'll cover their class while they'll go and get to visit another classroom because sometimes you just have to see it.
That's
I mean,
true.
you have to see
Yeah,
it.
that makes sense.
I mean, somebody can talk to you all you want, and you can sit in a PLC
Well, I
all
do it
day
this way,
long.
I do it the
But
other
to
way.
see it,
Yeah.
to me, it's.
Yeah, when we had the second grade teachers at Treadway go visit the third grade teachers
Yes.
and see the pressure that they were under and actually see those
Right.
children responding to that is when we became an A school,
Right,
because it turned second grade around.
yeah, knowing what they need to prepare for. Want to send their best thing out there.
I mean, something like that.
So it's,
There you go.
but we use that instead of
Perception.
observation.
I like that. I
non-evaluative classroom visit.
So take the word observations out and say non-evaluative classroom visit by persons other than.
Right.
Yeah, you're taking out that one clause, observations of a teacher's class and putting
That would work. That's perfect.
And I think that's better than just saying classroom visits or learning walks, because this is the part I think that is
let's
the
get
stress
that
out
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
that then brings the
I think
stress
that's
level
great.
down. Matter of fact, I feel like when we do those learning walks, we're the ones who have them. Then the teachers, if we're not seeing something that everybody's expecting us to see, I feel like somebody can come tell me, you're not doing it right.
And I think that brings up the point that, we've asked them to do, we've asked your side to do a rollout to the principals. We're gonna have to do something very similar, because not to pat myself on the back, my mindset was there last year. Once we got the names off and everything, my AP, hey, he's checking up to make sure she's gonna hold him accountable as to whether I'm teaching a standard. And I know that's the district's gonna be that. So I knew I was there, and it wasn't gonna be my observation.
Right.
I bet the 17 teachers, I'm exaggerating, I bet the teachers that are going crying to her still haven't gotten it. We need to make it clear to them.
And then they're young.
So we have a
They're young,
responsibility.
and you've got to protect them.
And we're not gonna get, and then not all of them will hear, because they need to cry. Not your teachers,
That was
teachers.
see if you can make me cry. I won't know how it works.
Okay.
Good, good. That's no problem.
Yeah, right. You're crying in the next grade.
Yeah, that's true.
How did you go again?
I can't think of it.
I got a box.
Oh, boy.
So we're good on 14,
Is that
change that.
Okay. So that's 10, right?
Yeah, but that's section 14 of 10. So
With
that's
that word change, yeah.
Section 18, the stuff that you guys work on, it look okay? All right, good.
Yes.
What we 11?
And 11 and 12 and 13 are fine.
She's gonna break out a song.
Where's your happy face, Nick?
Oh, just don't break that.
And then it starts with the items that, because 14 is a differential pay, 15 is the workday that we're still going back and forth, 16 is compensation. 17 was the leave of absence, stuff that we had brought up a few things, then travel transfers. And then 20 becomes summer school, which I know we talked about, but we haven't really said.
So where are we at, 15? Was
So
it 14?
14 is the differential pay.
It'll fall under probably.
So, and then I noticed it's up to the salaries and stuff. So those are all 14, 15, and 16. And then it starts 17 is where the leave of absence, where we had some questions on travel. I don't know whether we really had any.
No, I think there was so much in that.
And then 19, the transfers, which was the retention idea, I think, on that one. The 20 was the summer school we sort of talked about, but said that it was going to kind of stay in there just because. And then 21 to 24 is fine also, because that's kind of ones that need to.
In between, the stuff I have for
In between is the
virtual, I was thinking would go before summer school.
before summer school.
But just kind of my thought, I don't have a number assigned to it, but then it keeps.
Yeah, well, we were gonna change numbers, I think, around anyway when we got all finished, if I remember correctly, to make it more cohesive. So, which I think Gail was one that said, well, we do that when it was all done, making sure that we had however we wanted to align it up, but.
So really
So really it's 14, 15, 16, 17.
on 15, we need some preliminary language for that, all the minutes and all that. The differential pay on 14, we had our first subcommittee meeting on it, went really well. I had some suggestions to clean some things up in language with that, but until we know what type of funding, if LIFT pulls apart, and what shifts from LIFT into that section, it's still kind of out there. On the leave of absence, I know there was stuff when we talked about all the time off put in together, but statute prevents a lot of that.
So, can I ask then, how can we have a solution to the problem of discriminating against people in our situation? Well, I mean, we fixed our situation, we got married, but when there are administrators that tell people you cannot know, you can only take leave
For spouses.
to take care of somebody if they're this. There's somebody in my office who had a partner who passed away. I'm not going to go ask her if they told her that same thing.
I'm talking to the choir of administrators, so they don't even understand that. They don't understand.
I understand that, but I'm telling you, this is a real live case of 2 administrators said to me, no, I couldn't. How do we protect those other people?
Charlie, none of this group right here, or was it last group?
No, it would, no, it,
Right until they got married.
Oh, okay.
I have nothing but good things to say about my 2 bosses.
Okay.
And I'm sure that they did what they thought. I mean, they are not administrators who are out to.
But so what, I'm not, policy or discrimination? Because discrimination is a strong word. The policy is that you can't donate it to someone that's not an immediate family member, correct?
It's,
Is that one, that's what you have?
I could not
But she just wanted the day off.
You only,
couldn't
right,
take the
I
day.
couldn't take the day to take care of him
That's it.
or go to chemo with him because I had exhausted my personal leave, already taking care of
But
him.
that's not personal. That's sick of other family members.
What if you were
They
saying,
said, no, it's not a family member. That was the issue.
Family member.
but so you're telling me if Linda got sick, I couldn't take a sick day to go take her to the
That's
doctor?
That is correct.
If you had an administrator who read the policy the way it's written, they could say, no, you can't do that.
I didn't know we got that much involved when people take the day sick.
Some do.
And and that's my administrators. But
There are some that get into the weeds, yeah.
Because you know what, I never do that, because I never think
Like,
it's gonna
I
come.
mean, you all are accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna be in that situation.
You know, there are those who
We're not exempt.
get into that weed. And they love playing that weed.
can we have principals at the beginning principals meeting, make a statement to employees that if there's a problem, come talk to me about it? So people at least,
This is dictated by statute. Statute 1012.61 sick leave states specifically who you can take, what you can take sick leave for.
I have known, and I have had an administrator who has told me specifically to lie.
Well, I'm telling you that it's, our board policy is dictated by statute.
And she should have been able to go.
It says.
No,
No.
No,
No.
no.
And is it,
But administrators make that choice in other schools, which is fair and equitable for what's best for their staff. And
I agree. But
I know it, I know it.
Gail Linson dated her fiance for 10 years. She sat there and watched him while he died of cancer. I hope to, my administrator didn't say the same thing to her as they said to me. But then how is that fair?
your other option would be allow people to donate time or just to review to take time no matter what, because it's, I mean, I don't know, I can tell you, if I've got to take, I don't care, my best friend to chemo, it's my mental health, it's a sick day for me.
But there again, that's who we have some administrators who want to know the reason. And I'm sorry, the state law doesn't allow that, so I'm not approving it.
Question.
I'm just
I
saying.
understand about the statute. Does the superintendent have power to grant days off? Maybe this is like a waiver situation. It's like, you can't do it because of statute, but we can fill out Form 2B, goes to the superintendent, she signs it, and you get to do it. Do we have that power?
I think so.
But you know what, it shouldn't have to go that far.
I agree, but I'm trapped with the statute part.
It should, but that's the same thing why we brought up the bereavement idea, because the bereavement says it's like immediate family, meaning a mother, a father, a spouse, and, something like that. Well, okay, if you've got, a very best friend that you want to go to their funeral and it's during the day, you're not supposed to take off for that. I mean, it's,
Hopefully you have enough personal
Do these
leave.
employees, have they already used all their days for the year? Is that what we're talking about? Or people who?
They've used their personal days, they may not have used their sick.
Okay.
yeah, they may not use
Sick
their
leave.
sick days.
But I had already used my 5
Now, if they used all their days,
And the
it's their
book
days.
Okay, so you use all your
sick
days,
days and the
right?
personal
You
days.
take it without
Same
pay.
thing.
You don't use your personal
Whether you
days.
put sick or whether you put personal.
It's always,
It comes out of the same pot.
That's the problem.
well,
But
I like the idea of an exemption.
If it passes the legal smell test. I wish, it shouldn't have to be that way. I'm thinking about some of the things we had to do, and the teachers were, somebody ran out of sick days and personal days, and they needed it, and family comes first. And then they worked 4 days in the summer, right? And it's just the culture, but can't
the
count
kind
on
of
that
district
100%
I
in
want
42
to work
schools
in.
yet.
But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But it used to be like that.
Probably before the current people in the legislature started to dismantle public education in whatever possible way they could.
So the question is, how can we work around it and meet statute?
I think that should be on an individual basis.
I thought we could talk about it.
And if
We
that
did,
is on
but
an individual
Well,
basis,
we
and I think
did,
if that
and you all
teacher.
said, you left caucus and came back and said, yes, we need to do something about that. And Michelle said, can't. And that was it.
Because of the statute. But what I'm saying is there should be something that should work with you people. Yes.
So maybe that's another thing that has to be stressed on both sides. If nothing else is done, it has to be stressed on both sides that if that person is requesting a day off, mental health, whatever, but it's a day off. If they have the days, they should be able to take.
When people go in Skyward and put in a sick day, I'm not going to them and say, all right, what are you going for?
This is what I guess, what I don't, because I'm not sitting in the school. You guys request, if you have a sick leave day,
Yeah.
request it through Skyward,
Right.
and people follow up and ask if it's, I get it, if I've got somebody that's, on pay without leave status, or
That might be okay.
without, leave without pay status, and they're
Those
using the
people I would
system
check.
and they're,
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
see there's some follow-up, but people are actually, they're gonna question.
We've had bookkeepers question, why are you taking this sick day? How are you sick? Is it your child? Whatever. We've had APs question it. We've had principals question it. Now, should this be sick day
Be done.
unless you're 3 days in a row and need doctor's note? But we've had from bookkeepers on up question why you were taking this sick day.
Jack, can that be something that we just stress as we go over contract?
I don't know, I think it solves
It
what
just
happened
needs to
in
be
Charlotte.
somewhere where it's not forgotten.
I mean, I just don't believe people should have, nobody should be prying into someone's,
Personal
to
opinion.
me, I mean, you stand to be in some legal issues if you're questioning people's validity towards a sick leave request. I mean, to me, you're prying into.
There's something called HIP that
Yeah.
prevents us from doing that.
Because those people who skip out all the time, I may call them, hey, what's going on? Oh, goodness,
Well-
I got this, okay.
And maybe that's what we need to do a better job of educating teachers about. I've been here 30 years, so I've had numerous supervisors. Michelle knows the supervisor I am talking about that is not my current one. That a teacher asked for a day of sick leave, to take her deaf child to Gallaudet University for the first time up in Washington.
Was there on scholarship, I remember.
And because she put in on sick leave, her boss went to her and said, aren't you taking your son to school? And she said, yes. That was a pretty big deal that he had gotten into Gallaudet. She said, yes. And she was told, you cannot use sick leave for that. But it was a day beyond in our contract, and we were told that we could not use personal leave during that time.
So when people are honest to a fault,
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
it's what we do.
Yes.
And we do have a box that's Skyward that you can put your reason, but you don't have to put it. And I tell my people, don't put that you're going to the pulmonologist or what, I don't care. I don't want to know for a reason.
We have people who have turned them down because they didn't answer that question.
do you think that, is it occurring more where there's closer inspection in departments than it is at schools? Or do you feel like it's happening regularly at schools?
I think schools have too many, they
Yeah.
try to, I mean.
I know.
And I'll get emails from folks that say, hey, I gotta go do so-and-so and so-and-so with my kid. Is it okay? Okay, approved.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with it at all.
But I have a problem writing, advising people to do things in an ethical way that follows the way we want things done. I have no problem with it. Writing unlawful contract language, I do have a problem. So how do we make sure people are, like I said, protected is the word from.
I just think it's from the individual, again, if that happens, they need to get with their union person or whatever, and it just.
And they say it's not a contract, sorry.
Well, different group of people, if this happened under the same group of people now, is that what we're saying?
I've had circumstances where my phone was ringing and they've asked for advice. And I give them the advice of if someone is asking to take a sick day, they can tell you whatever they want to tell you anyway. What right do you have to prevent them from taking a sick day?
If you put in the contract something along the lines of HIPAA privacy rules apply, that tells an administrator they can't have it on.
I think we just need to say, I don't think we need to put it in the contract. It's just something that needs to be communicated that.
And why do we have that box out there for somebody to explain?
That's why we asked about
Well,
that, yeah.
that's Skyward, that's just, as a part of the program, I know that.
And you can't bring it up, you can't?
I don't have the power to take that box away.
I didn't put nothing in the box.
And beyond that, I think you request sick leave, and I think that there are secondary requests under the sick leave,
Yes.
isn't there a reason
Yes.
code?
Yes.
So I don't, in my opinion, we don't even need a reason code. You are requesting sick time, period.
Yeah, that's
that's how it
And
should be worked
I don't know.
Get rid of some of that on.
Again, that's out of my control.
Is that the whole Department of IT people who can program that box out?
They can request it, they can't do it themselves. My understanding. Can I go through the linear again? I want to make sure I'm clear because we went, okay, someone has sick days and personal days, all right? Family crisis happens. I'm going to think in my head about my colleague whose wife was pregnant and had the issue. Brand new, didn't know what was going, and it became all hands on deck. That's culture. But going back, so he uses up his personal days. Next level is some people, we have evidence that some people question what is the sick day. Okay, so you can't just, some people can't just use their sick day for what someone else has designated as a personal day.
Yeah, let's say it's his sister-in-law instead of his wife.
Got it,
His wife would
okay.
be
Well,
covered,
bad
his
example,
sister-in-law
but-
would not be.
All right, so now I've got that one issue, and then I go to the next level. I've used up my sick days, I've used up my personal days, and I still have the need for time. Is that, do we have that? Or is it just back here about the relationship?
We're going to be unpaid.
Unpaid,
It's unpaid leave.
right. So it's just the first part.
Yeah, shouldn't that person be able to use sick leave instead of just immediately jumping to?
Okay. And that's the thing statute says you can't do. I understand that. Sick and a personal, two different things.
Does it have mother-in-law in there?
I don't believe so.
Hey, the same thing came up with
Yeah,
with the travel
Shirley, I
ban.
think you were sick, so I don't understand it. You were sick worried, so go.
Well, that's what, but that's
The
what,
problem was, and I would be happy to coach people on it, the problem was, I asked first.
Oh, mistake number one, never.
Always too honest. I am a painfully honest
She didn't
person.
sneeze after. Oh, sorry, I meant it.
isn't the issue if you, trying to stay within statute, if the employee has hit a block with their administrator, what is the, what's the word I'm looking for? What is the recourse for them to do? And that brings me back to, can I send my Director of Administration a note saying, this happened, can I have that? Okay. So I think you can get a line in the contract for that. I think it's just, what, you don't even have to be as specific as I'm saying, it just has to say that if denied, appeal can be made to, and whoever you want to define it.
Well, simpler than that is, take out the reason for sick absences. Just take that reason box out of there. Don't have that choice even.
Or not, it can be there, you don't have to choose.
I got to disagree. There's going to be teachers, especially new teachers, who, box but notwithstanding, are just going to be honest with their folks. They're just going to come out and say it. And we can try to coach that, but no, I'd rather have something in writing that says, you got to know, okay, we understand that you can't write a policy for 100%, so here is your recourse. Here's what you do.
Can we talk for 5 minutes?
Sure.
And then you get the last 30 minutes, boss.
You leaving us?
Oh, we're sticking with it.
You
You guys got last time, right? We got too big. All right.
On the topic, go ahead.
Here, do you need it?
No. Well, I'm definitely sympathetic to the issue. I don't see, if you look at our contract language, it mirrors what's in statute. And what I can offer is I can speak directly to administrators and tell them they need to be extremely mindful and do not question people when they're putting in their sick time. If it's with a big flashing light, it could be a violation, or really personal, because it's in the same bucket, it's a big flashing light of HIPAA violations and rights violations, and I can go back and I can give that, and so it's not false. We can annually do that with a reminder. I can't see how we can, instead of the loophole, the language is directly at instructional people. And like I said, all their infinite wisdom and their angles. So I do want, obviously, you've heard the opinion from this side that we don't think it's right, but at the same time, we need to stay within the law. So that's what I can offer, is we go back and put that on the list, especially when we're going through the contract, re-emphasizing it at several different times, that they need to be specifically mindful of when people are taking that sick. I'll look and see. I know, there's some research on it, and we've asked some questions about what we have. A lot of the check boxes and things that are through Skyward are geared towards things they have to have in finance also. So we can look and see what has to be there and what doesn't have to be there. And if something's unnecessary and it can be changed, whether it's a work order that has to go through Skyward, and look at that. So, but we're a little bit limited, I feel like.
I know with conversations with Corning, several teachers asked her specifically about sick time going to anyone, not just family. And she agreed with that concept.
She agreed with the concept, but a conversation with Corey and then in that realm, but then taking out that and taking consideration what that could do to your sick bank, with the discussions we've had there, then you run into some real discrimination issues and things where there will be people like that have a possibility left out because they're less popular, therefore they don't get, the sick bank will fall. I can tell you that if people they know that their buddies can loan hours to them, then the sick bank's going to crack, and your people out there, if you're not popular or you're not a person who, whatever the case may be, or just straight discrimination for some characteristic of yourself, then you run into some real issues there, and we don't want that.
And then another question along this line. Now, the Ed Foundation is asking different class of employees to give up sick days or something to donate to the Ed Foundation.
When you guys gave me that, I was the first I'd heard of that a few months back. So I went back and when Scott as soon as Scott came in, the CFO, hey, I need your opinions on this too. He said, man, I'm already on it. He said no, we cannot, they cannot do that the way it's worded. So he had them go back and basically you can donate the equivalent of what a sick day would be worth. It's pretty much the language that they went with there. So the amount that you're putting in per check would be the equivalent of that. But they reworded it so it would not be something that you can't just donate sick time to that foundation. So that's how we reworked some of that. I can't remember the language specifically that they put in there, but what was originally presented to the superintendent, again, thought it was a great idea. Once we raked over it, we said, no, this isn't possible written this way. I know Scott got with Carmen and they worked out some acceptable language.
So the question is, the box in the sick time for a reason.
Well, I'll ask if we can do away with that and see what answer I get. And I'll push on.
Okay. Rest of them
That's the end of
for
what
now.
I've had anyway.
Okay.
To go through everything, make sure we were all up to date.
Should we pick our next day before we dive into this?
Well, we got 30 minutes. I'm getting it back.
We were done it before.
We're supposed to be done at 4. Some of this, I imagine you're gonna have to take some time to look at. It's coming your way. As it's coming, just keep in mind that basically what I did was, you've got the original, the usual language you guys had historically for compensation plan, and I've removed some of the things out of it that you'll see. And then you'll see option 1 and option 2 that have basically been, option 1 with lift and COLA still intact. Addition of COLA and lift still intact. Option 2 is redistribution of the lift funding with COLA. Taking it down also.
We'll see.
Thank you, guys.
There she goes. Good.
And then I'll pass them back.
When we get to the second page, I want to address a couple of numbers that, when it comes to number of employees, so I can tell you why some of those differences exist.
So the original option 1 and 2 are rolled into option 1, and option 3 now become option.
Basically, the options, the elements, I'm thinking COLA is acceptable because it touches everybody, regardless, because you can't discriminate those dollars. And a lot of the districts I looked at, it's become a standard of what they're doing. And then 1 and 2, basically the only difference is it's just like it was. Whether the $1 million from lift is included in the proposal.
Set a new day?
If I can tell you guys though, before, on this, you'll see, we took out the information, the thought process of all the different salary schedules being in there. I mean, essentially they become a placement schedule, which they are. And then, so those are removed out. And then the the two bullets down at the bottom of the front page, basically eliminate the cap.
Okay.
And then once you get inside, it's more strikes that affect the cap.
Thank you.
And it definitely seemed like a priority.
This is really easy.
I'm applauding you on that one. Thank you very
so,
much.
thank you.
Really nice.
And just keep in mind, and I know, and you guys, I fully understand you guys are put in a tough situation because looking out for those folks that are capping and trying to look out for everybody at the same time. And it doesn't, like I said earlier today, it doesn't hit this year's budget, it'll be next year, depending on what dollars are there. You know, because that creates, you currently got about, let's just say, you've got 1,100 folks on the grandfather schedule that were placed there on that July 2014 date. 200 of them, a little over 200 folks were at the top of the scale. So those 200 people now their salary will continue to build with a reoccurring, but it's going to be a reoccurring expense for the district during the past as well. So that affects the bottom line dollars every time we come to the table moving forward. Can you guys give me any thoughts on LIFT and where you guys stand with that?
Anybody can answer that if you want.
I've never been a fan of LIFT. And the redistribution, as long as it's all covered here, which of course will take some time to make sure, would make me very happy. And anything like LIFT is from now on included in the supplemental. So if you want to do something for somebody, make a category that goes in the supplemental. That's my thing.
And keeping in mind, there's no, beyond 1819, there's nothing in stone there for it. Honestly, I'm trying to get this money in reoccurring dollars before the legislature figures out some other mandate for security and something else. So I really feel like while eventually we're all going to take it on the chin for that, those large amounts that they've provided to Title I teachers, you know, at the same time, if we can roll as much of it into everybody's recurring salary, I just feel like it's a win, not a win, but it's beneficial to get that reoccurring as quick as possible.
The only thing that goes away with LIFT, which was an overpromise and never achieved, which was for phase 3, which is a bench strength program to encourage. I just would say, please think about that within the context of the 75,000 other priorities.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have. I had it at every company. That's my one person's input.
Well, I think that's beyond the contract, it's improving the district as a whole. It's not a bad idea. So, and I would definitely help that. So.
Okay, so Christy Burns had all our thinking as far as one place.
Christy and I sat down and we had some discussions.
Yeah.
Okay. So new date. Yay.
Soon.
Soon. What are we looking at? Wednesday, right?
25th? That too
Not
soon?
from this Wednesday.
Oh, that's-
From this Wednesday.
I'm actually good.
I just need, I mean, if you guys have got some meetings,
Okay.
I've got some homework to do, but if y'all want to come back to me for feedback on conversation, I'm game. We can,
5th?
My ESE class is here, so I'm not, I'm a little.
What is that? That's a Monday?
Yeah, AP Science.
Wednesday.
We're not here.
Wednesday.
ESE.
Doesn't have to be a Wednesday. What about the 26th, Thursday?
I have,
Just to live. I mean, ESE class.
It's in the afternoon, I'll be able to do it. I'm not doing it.
I can do the morning of the 26th.
And I can't do the morning, I have my meeting with the super on 26th on the morning.
It's Region 3.
And then we have,
Region
yes,
3 day.
and then we also have, I have quarterly meeting in city Minneapolis.
Are we back on?
No,
Do we do Monday afternoon before the board meeting?
The 23rd?
The 23rd?
Um,
Next week, I don't know what.
I can't do that.
24th?
I know it's waiting on a few things.
23rd is board meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the before the board meeting.
I mean, we can definitely reconvene. Honestly, I wanted the 23rd would be good. And if we could get some good information and some good ideas on compensation and things like that, I can maybe schedule to meet with the board that night and update them on some things.
23rd's fine.
I can't make it.
That's okay.
July 23rd, at what time?
Um,
1 or early morning?
If we go 1 to 4, that would be good. We've got a board meeting that evening, that gives me a little time in between the board meetings.
At the district
At the
office?
district office,
District
we'll talk to
office.
them. We got a board meeting that evening.
we've got an employee orientation on Monday afternoon, so conference room day for the
We do the board.
boardroom.
We can do the board room.
We can meet here, but the tables won't be in this arrangement. So
And we can, the board room's open.
Boardroom is open.
Yeah, board room's open.
Okay.
It really helps, I've got a board meeting that night, that helps me a lot. I imagine there'll be other issues that come up.
Oh, wait, we're looking at 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay. We're in. Do we want to talk about what specific items?
What do you want to talk about?
I would love it, are you still okay to generate some of the minutes? If that can be the core discussion along with wherever you guys are thoughts on compensation, that'd be cool. If you have any other questions you want to forward me in between the next couple of days for clarification, and I've got the virtual article that we can knock out pretty quick. I think it's pretty straightforward. And I'll actually email you guys that.
Do we have any questions about insurance?
Not so much, we need an overview of the insurance, and we need something among the speech and language therapists
Okay.
on moving the triple C folks with the student liabilities to psychologist schedule.
I've been looking at what some other folks are doing. I've got CFO still pulling. We hadn't had time to get together since I got back. So I'll reach out.
So is the 21st going to be enough time, or do you want to look at a separate date?
Do you want, if we can get another day, that's fine.
Or you want the 23rd and another day just to.
Yeah, that's the 23rd definitely there.
Okay.
And then, sometime that following week of the 30th.
Okay.
That would have to be,
Before the 31st.
yeah, that would have to be either Monday.
Can we do the 30th, just the very next?
So just do 2 Mondays in a row. I've got, it'll have to be in the afternoon because I got a board workshop.
Well, workshop's been changed to 4 o'clock.
Okay, well then it'll have to be in the morning. So
So it was changed while you were gone.
Natalie's update.
All right, so we'll go in the morning then.
So what time, 8 to
9 to 12 or 8 to?
Let's go 8 to noon.
8 to noon?
That's not very awesome.
And if that's, we can do SLP and whatever insurance stuff's hanging around on that day.
Okay.
And do you guys mind doing 2 in a row at our spot?
No, that's
No, that's fine.
Yeah, because the workshop is in there.
Yeah.
What time does it start?
You can do it
Is it our goal to try to like get everything together and be done? Like, do we have a date?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking the same thing. It's like, wouldn't it be nice to have a contract before school begins?
Yeah.
That was our goal last year.
I need to,
It's possible.
well, it's definitely possible, I just,
It's close.
It's close.
Understood, understood. Don't get too excited.
okay.
It's close.
I feel like we can get those minutes and then schedule things hammered out, conversation, and then, and as soon, now that if I've got an idea, Cliff, that's kind of what I need for the differentiated pay, to wrap my mind around that. Because that's what the most time-consuming thing's probably gonna be, is if some parts of the lift has to be pulled over to differentiated pay. It shouldn't be too bad, but it can be done pretty quickly. It's just, that's probably the laborious thing about it.
It'd be nice to see what we think will stay and what will be gone. So, I mean, one of my things that I talk to Gary about it every year is, I got some small departments, and some people aren't advanced or distinguished. And so I'm always having to write a letter asking forgiveness for putting somebody in who's not advanced. I know some other big schools don't have that problem, but I got like 4 people in the department. And every year I'm writing a letter, trying to explain that I don't have anybody.
And, and there's some things from Lyft that will probably have to hang out until we get the team committee, because targeting evaluation is a product of Lyft also, so that we have to have a way to make sure that happens correctly. We good? All right, thank you.
Call it.